In the quiet corridors of a small-town hospital, patients checked in for healing, but some never made it out alive. Their final moments remained an unsolved mystery, until whispers of a nurse's dark past began to surface. The sterile hallways, bathed in flickering fluorescent lights, hid secrets far colder than the night itself. Many deaths once dismissed as natural causes now carry the weight of suspicion, an unsettling truth buried beneath layers of routine and silence. Welcome to Criminal Mindcast, the podcast where we tell true crime stories not just with facts, but with silence, with the haunting weight of what was never said. Here, we dive deep into the shadows where human nature reveals its most fragile and fractured edges. Today, we unravel a cold case from a small town, where trust in a caregiver masked a dark past and deaths that were anything but natural. Tonight, we explore the unsettling story of a nurse whose quiet control over life and death has left a trail of unanswered questions. Behind the calm exterior lies a psychological profile marked by obsession and power, set against the backdrop of a community struggling to reconcile care with suspicion. Let's begin to uncover the truth hidden in those cold hospital corridors. In a small town where everyone knows each other, the local hospital stands as a symbol of hope, a place where the community seeks healing and comfort in moments of vulnerability. Among the hospital staff, one nurse appeared to embody dedication and professionalism. Calm, attentive, and reliable, she was respected by colleagues and trusted by patients. Yet beneath this composed surface, a complex and troubling psychological profile simmered. Hidden from most, her childhood was far from peaceful. Raised in a fractured home marked by isolation and violence, she grew up surrounded by shadows that never faded. Family secrets shaped her view of control and survival, teaching her early that power must be seized and held tightly, often by any means necessary. Trust was scarce in her world, and pain was a language spoken in silence. This early trauma laid the foundation for a personality that struggled to reconcile outward care with an internal need to dominate. The town itself was small and insular, where rumors traveled slowly but never truly died. Whispers of mysterious patient deaths at the hospital circulated quietly in grocery stores and church pews, becoming cautious conversations behind closed doors. Most victims were elderly, often isolated, with no family to question their passing, officially recorded as natural deaths. These cases bore faint but troubling signs of something more. Colleagues observed subtle but unsettling behaviors: a too long pause in the hallway, a lingering glance at medication carts, whispered words not meant for patients. Though no one could pinpoint the source of their unease, they sensed a quiet power in the nurse's presence, a control quietly exerted within the sterile hospital environment. The line between caregiving and control blurred under her watch, creating an aura that was both reassuring and chilling. Psychologically, her profile suggested an obsession with authority over life and death. The hospital was not merely a workplace but a stage where she exercised a compulsion to decide who lived and who died. Such behavior often stems from unresolved early trauma, where the victim becomes predator in an attempt to reclaim lost power. Her actions hinted at a fractured identity, struggling to assert dominance in the coldest way possible. Her victims were predominantly vulnerable elderly patients, often without advocates or close family. These patients arrived expecting care and healing, but their stories ended abruptly and mysteriously. Many had chronic illnesses or age-related frailty, making sudden declines less scrutinized by overburdened staff. At first, hospital personnel accepted these deaths as part of the natural cycle of life. Yet beneath this veneer, an unsettling pattern quietly emerged. The nurse's family history revealed emotional neglect and unspoken suffering, with childhood abuse leaving deep scars. This trauma manifested as a need to control people and environments, born from a life of isolation and pain. Such a background painted a complex portrait of a woman torn between professionalism and inner turmoil. Within this small town, trust was a form of currency and reputation carried great weight. As the nurse's dark past slowly seeped into the community consciousness, fear and suspicion began to spread. The hospital became a microcosm of this tension, where patients and staff alike questioned the safety of those under her care. Rumors, slow to spread but persistent, created an atmosphere thick with anxiety. Her role was paradoxical, a caregiver meant to provide comfort, yet a hidden threat lurking beneath the surface. This duality underscored the chilling complexity of her psychological makeup, an intertwining of compassion and control, care and coercion. Colleagues recalled moments when she seemed detached, eyes distant as if battling internal demons. Others noted her obsessive attention to detail, a vigilance that was both a strength and a warning sign. In this fragile balance between nurture and darkness, the nurse embodied a disturbing ambiguity. The boundary between healing and harm blurred under her watch, raising profound questions about the nature of care itself. Was her desire for control born of compassion twisted by trauma, or did darker forces drive her actions? These questions lingered as the community grappled with whispered rumors and uneasy truths. The hospital's quiet corridors echoed with footsteps, but the nurse's story remained hidden beneath layers of routine and silence. Her psychological profile revealed a dangerous interplay between past trauma and present behavior, a reminder that behind every face is a hidden story, a mind with shadows often unseen. In a place where trust was both given and betrayed, the nurse's identity revealed deep contradictions. She was both an authority figure and a vulnerable person, shaped by pain yet driven to control life and death. This duality is central to understanding the disturbing deaths that later emerged. The small town, once confident in its safety, faced troubling questions. How many lives had quietly ended under her watch? How many deaths labeled as natural causes hid darker truths? These questions fractured the town's sense of normalcy. Her dark past was more than background, it was key to her motivations. Childhood abuse, isolation, and a desperate need for control created a complex psychological profile. It was not simple cruelty, but a mix of trauma, power, and identity, a silent struggle reflected in vulnerable patients' lives. Through her story, the town confronted hard truths about trust, authority, and human darkness. The hospital, meant for healing, became a stage for quiet domination, a cold assertion of power masked as care. The nurse's roles as healer and hidden threat reveal a haunting paradox. She embodied hope and betrayal, challenging ideas about evil and its many faces. Understanding her complex psychology, shaped by trauma and control, is essential to grasping the chilling balance of care and harm at the heart of the story. Her dark past and psychological complexity serve as a mirror to the deeper shadows within us all. Human behavior often masks profound struggles, and places of healing can sometimes harbor unnoticed dangers. The challenge is uncovering these truths without succumbing to fear or sensationalism. As we delve into the timeline and details of the crimes, keep this psychological portrait in mind. It will guide us through the shadows of a case that remains cold, but not silent, a case forcing us to confront trauma, control, and the fragile boundary between life and death. The patients arrived at the hospital often under circumstances that appeared routine. Many were admitted with chronic conditions or minor ailments, their health stable enough that families and doctors expected recovery or at least peaceful care. The nurse in question was frequently assigned the night shift, a time when the hospital's corridors emptied, and the steady hum of machines replaced the daytime bustle. This quiet, isolated environment became the stage where the unsettling timeline of events began to unfold. On those nights, the nurse's behavior deviated from normal caregiving routines in subtle but significant ways. Surveillance footage, though limited, showed her entering patient rooms multiple times without medical necessity. These visits were not logged as part of scheduled checks or medication rounds. She moved through the halls with a calm precision, her actions deliberate and controlled, as if performing a ritual hidden from the eyes of others. The timeline of each death often started with patients who were last seen alive. During these night shifts, their condition, stable hours earlier, suddenly declined without clear medical explanation. Reports from hospital staff described the nurse as attentive, yet certain details did not add up. Families received official statements citing respiratory failure or natural causes, but discrepancies in medication records raised questions. High doses of sedatives, beyond prescribed limits, were found in several cases, suggesting a pattern concealed behind medical jargon. One critical piece of evidence emerged from a secret notebook discovered months later. This small, worn book contained names of patients alongside dates matching their times of death. The entries were methodical, almost clinical, hinting at a calculated process rather than random tragedy. The nurse's handwriting filled pages with a cold precision that contrasted starkly with the warmth expected from a caregiver. This notebook transformed the narrative from isolated incidents to a connected series of suspicious deaths. Hospital administration initially dismissed concerns, attributing the deaths to the frailty of the elderly patients and the stresses of illness. Yet the nurse's pattern of behavior could not be ignored indefinitely. The repeated presence in patient rooms at odd hours, combined with unexplained medication records and the secret ledger, formed a troubling mosaic of evidence. The timeline of events revealed not chaos, but a chilling consistency. During the investigation, Timelines were carefully reconstructed to trace the nurse's movements throughout her shifts. Logs revealed she often lingered near medication carts longer than necessary. Day shift nurses described her demeanor during handovers as calm, almost coldly detached. Limited hospital security footage captured moments where she hesitated before entering certain patient rooms, hinting at premeditation. Several patients under her care had been admitted with stable vitals, initially giving medical staff hope. Yet, sudden respiratory distress followed, with rapid declines that puzzled doctors. Officially, deaths were recorded as natural causes, but families noticed troubling patterns. Some reported strange interactions, unexplained sedation, or changes in medication timing. The hospital's silence only intensified suspicions. One chilling case involved a patient last seen speaking with the nurse hours before a sudden fatal decline. The patient's chart showed minimal nurse interactions, yet surveillance footage revealed multiple unrecorded visits, exposing a disturbing gap between documented care and reality. A secret notebook found in the nurse's possession added a coldly calculated dimension. The ledger listed patient names, admission dates, and exact times of death, suggesting deliberate victim selection rather than random misfortune. This compulsion to meticulously record deaths reflected a need for control. Medication records showed elevated doses of sedatives and respiratory depressants, often administered during her solitary night shifts. While such drugs are common in palliative care, the amounts exceeded normal therapeutic levels, likely hastening deaths under the guise of natural decline. Initially, the hospital was cautious, reluctant to question a trusted employee. Internal reviews cited elderly patient vulnerability, attributing deaths to chronic illness. However, mounting inconsistencies became harder to ignore. Staff whispers grew, and some nurses privately voiced unease about her nighttime behavior. The timeline revealed a clear pattern. Deaths clustered during her shifts, especially late nights, contrasting sharply with other nurses whose patient outcomes followed expected medical trajectories. This discrepancy prompted investigators to deepen their scrutiny. This detailed chronology exposed the duality of the nurse's role. She maintained the appearance of professional care while engaging in activities that contradicted her duties. Her movements were controlled, deliberate, and imbued with a quiet authority over life and death. The timeline illuminated a slow unraveling of trust, a hidden narrative of power wielded in silence. Families of victims, initially accepting hospital explanations, began to question the timeline of events. They noticed inconsistencies in medication schedules and unexplained delays in updates. Some reported feeling dismissed when raising concerns, deepening their sense of isolation. Their grief became intertwined with suspicion, complicating the search for answers. The nurse's nocturnal visits, often unaccounted for, became the focal point of the timeline. These moments held the key to understanding the sudden declines in patient health. The timeline also highlighted a chilling element: the nurse's ability to manipulate the environment, bending protocols to her will without detection. This control over space and time within the hospital created a shadow network where her actions went unnoticed. In tracing the timeline, investigators noted a gradual escalation. Early cases showed minor irregularities, but later incidents involved more aggressive medication doses and longer unrecorded visits. This progression suggested an increasing comfort with exerting control over patient outcomes, a deepening detachment from the ethical boundaries of care. The hospital environment itself facilitated this timeline. Night shifts are typically quieter, with fewer staff and reduced oversight. The nurse exploited this isolation, using the darkness and silence to mask her actions. The sterile corridors, designed for healing, became corridors of quiet menace, where the nurse's authority went unchallenged. Ultimately, the timeline revealed a calculated sequence of events rather than random tragedy. Each death fit into a pattern of control and secrecy. The nurse's behavior during these critical hours shaped the fate of vulnerable patients, turning a place of recovery into a cold stage for hidden acts. This detailed chronology was crucial to unraveling the truth, revealing the shadowed reality beneath the hospital's fluorescent lights. When suspicions first surfaced regarding the nurse's involvement in the suspicious patient deaths, law enforcement quickly launched an investigation that revealed a host of systemic challenges. The initial response was hindered by an overwhelming reliance on hospital records, which consistently portrayed the deaths as expected outcomes of natural causes. Police officers found themselves navigating a complex landscape filled with medical jargon, incomplete or inconsistent evidence, and an institutional reluctance to question a long-trusted employee. This reluctance, rooted in a culture of loyalty and the sanctity of caregiving roles, created significant obstacles for investigators seeking the truth. As the inquiry unfolded, glaring gaps in the available evidence became apparent. Medication logs contained inconsistencies. Some entries were missing entirely, while others appeared altered or suspiciously vague. Surveillance footage, already limited in scope due to poor camera placement and technical malfunctions, proved unreliable in key moments. Witnesses among hospital staff hesitated to come forward, their silence motivated by fear of retaliation or professional consequences. This culture of silence and intimidation complicated efforts to build a clear timeline or establish a motive behind the nurse's actions. Public reaction was a complex blend of disbelief, intrigue, and unease. The nurse's reputation as a caring and dedicated professional stood in stark contrast to the emerging allegations, creating a profound cognitive dissonance within the community. Media outlets quickly seized upon this paradox, turning the case into a media frenzy. Headlines framed her as an angel of mercy, a phrase loaded with irony given the chilling accusations of murder. This duality captured public fascination, and the story became a national talking point. Social media amplified the divide further. Supporters defended the nurse's character and commitment to care, viewing the allegations as unfounded or exaggerated. Conversely, skeptics demanded justice for the victims and accountability from the hospital. This polarization reflected broader societal struggles with trust both in individuals and institutions and the unsettling possibility that those sworn to heal might instead cause harm. The small town, once unified by quiet solidarity, found itself fractured by suspicion and fear. Police theories about the nurse's motive varied widely, reflecting the case's complexity. Some investigators proposed that a dark craving for power motivated her, a desire to exert control over life and death that extended beyond professional boundaries. Others speculated financial incentives, suggesting possible insurance fraud or monetary gain tied to the premature deaths. A third theory focused on a distorted sense of mercy. The nurse might have believed she was alleviating suffering by hastening death, a twisted form of compassion. These competing hypotheses underscore the difficulty in discerning intent, blending psychological motives with practical considerations. Despite extensive investigation, no definitive proof emerged to confirm any single motive. The nurse's behavior seemed to hint at elements of all three theories, leaving investigators grappling with ambiguity. During interrogations, she maintained a calm and collected demeanor, offering carefully measured statements. She denied any wrongdoing, emphasizing her commitment to patient care and strict adherence to protocol. Her polished and composed responses contrasted sharply with the mounting circumstantial evidence, deepening the mystery rather than clarifying it. Meanwhile, the hospital administration faced intense criticism for its initial inaction and perceived complacency. Families of victims accused the institution of negligence and cover-up, asserting that warning signs had been ignored or dismissed too readily. These allegations triggered internal reviews and calls for greater transparency. Yet the hospital remained cautious, balancing legal risks with concerns about public relations and reputational damage. Witness testimony added further layers of complexity to the case. Some hospital staff recounted subtle but unsettling interactions with the nurse, quiet moments when she seemed emotionally detached or distant. Others noted unexplained absences from routine duties or inconsistencies in her work patterns. Fear and loyalty, however, often kept colleagues silent, fostering a culture where misconduct could quietly fester beneath the surface. Media coverage intensified the tension. Sensational headlines drew widespread public attention but risked overshadowing the nuanced realities of the investigation. Stories often framed the narrative as a dramatic contrast, the gentle caregiver versus the alleged killer. While compelling, this simplistic framing obscured deeper questions about psychological trauma, systemic failures, and institutional responsibility. As the investigation progressed, forensic analysis became increasingly critical. Toxicology reports confirmed elevated levels of sedatives and respiratory depressants in several victims, reinforcing suspicions of foul play. Yet linking these findings directly to the nurse required painstaking work. Given the complexities of patient care, many of whom were on overlapping prescriptions and palliative regimens, public hearings and community meetings revealed a town grappling with profound feelings of betrayal and loss. Residents expressed sorrow, anger, and confusion. Trust in the hospital and its staff was deeply shaken. The nurse's dual identity as both caregiver and suspect challenged long-held assumptions about safety and vulnerability within healthcare settings. Law enforcement expanded their investigation by working with psychologists, medical experts, and profilers to understand the nurse's mindset. Despite growing evidence, her silence and fragmented proof complicated prosecution. Defense attorneys challenged procedures and evidence reliability, delaying the trial and increasing the community's distress over unresolved questions. Amidst these challenges, families of victims continued their search for answers. Their persistence ensured the case remained alive in public consciousness, serving as a reminder to authorities of the human cost behind cold statistics and clinical reports. Advocacy groups called for reforms in hospital oversight, improved patient protections, and enhanced whistleblower policies to prevent similar tragedies. Ultimately, the investigation illuminated not only the individual nurse's actions, but also broader systemic vulnerabilities. It exposed how institutional inertia, cultural silence, and misplaced trust can enable harm to go undetected. The public's reaction highlighted the fragile trust placed in caregivers and the complex emotions unleashed when that trust is shattered. This tangled interplay of investigation, media scrutiny, and community response created a backdrop of tension and unresolved questions. It painted a portrait of a small town confronting the unimaginable, forced to reckon with the shadows lurking behind familiar faces. The case remains a cold reminder that appearances can deceive, and that justice often requires navigating a maze of ambiguity, silence, and fractured truths. The psychological landscape underlying this case reveals a deeply troubling interplay between past trauma and present actions. The nurse's childhood was marked by violence, emotional isolation, and neglect, an environment that shaped her worldview in profound ways. Control became not just a desire but a necessity, a survival mechanism forged in the crucible of early life chaos. In such a context, exerting dominance over others is often a way to reclaim power lost long ago, a psychological attempt to rewrite history through actions in the present. This fractured sense of self, formed under duress, reflects a struggle to maintain order in a world that once felt utterly chaotic. Individuals with histories of trauma frequently exhibit these patterns, where vulnerability is replaced by compulsions to dominate and control. Within this framework, the nurse's behavior can be seen as an outward expression of trauma psychology. Her compulsion to control life and death transcends ordinary caregiving, transforming what should be an act of compassion into a performative exercise of power. The boundaries between nurturing and harming become dangerously blurred, as the need for control supersedes empathy or ethical considerations. The cold precision with which she kept secret records and manipulated medication reflects this internal struggle, a psyche caught between pain and the desire for authority. From a philosophical standpoint, this case invites reflection through the lenses of Stoicism, Buddhism, and Confucianism, three traditions that offer insight into human nature, suffering, and ethical conduct. Stoicism teaches the acceptance of what lies beyond our control and the pursuit of inner tranquility. Despite external chaos, the nurse's desperate need to dominate life and death stands in stark contrast to this ideal. Her actions suggest a fractured relationship with acceptance, one where control is sought not as a means of peace, but as a way to assert power over an unpredictable world. Buddhism emphasizes compassion, detachment, and the relinquishing of desire. The nurse's behavior, marked by detachment but lacking genuine compassion, betrays a profound disconnection from these principles. Rather than releasing suffering through kindness and equanimity, her actions reflect a distorted form of control masquerading as mercy. Meanwhile, Confucianism stresses harmony, duty, and ethical responsibility, values fundamentally breached by her conduct. As a caregiver entrusted with the well-being of vulnerable patients, she violated the social and moral duties central to Confucian thought, undermining the very trust placed in her. Clinically, the nurse's psychological profile may align with features of certain personality disorders, characterized by manipulative behavior, lack of empathy, and a compulsive need for control. Her emotional detachment from the consequences of her actions, combined with the cold calculation evident in her secret ledger of patient deaths, suggests psychopathic traits. Yet this diagnosis is complicated by the deep trauma woven into her history, suggesting a blend of pathology shaped by environmental factors and individual psychology. Such complexity challenges simplistic labels, underscoring the need for nuanced understanding when assessing criminal behavior rooted in trauma. At the heart of the case lies a haunting question. Why did she do it? Was her motivation a warped form of mercy, a desire to free suffering patients from pain and inevitable decline? Or was it the intoxicating thrill of power itself? an addictive sensation derived from holding ultimate control over life's final moments. Perhaps the truth is layered, reflecting shifting and intertwined motives. This ambiguity highlights the complexity of human psychology, especially under conditions of duress and unresolved trauma. Beyond understanding motive, the case raises urgent questions for future investigation and prevention. A systematic comparison of mortality data across different nursing shifts may uncover patterns that have long gone unnoticed. Such analysis could reveal troubling correlations between patient deaths and specific periods when certain staff members, like the nurse in question, were on duty. This approach highlights the importance of meticulous record keeping and vigilant data review as essential tools in identifying irregularities. Alongside this, a closer examination of medication administration protocols is crucial. Inconsistencies or lapses in these protocols may expose vulnerabilities that malicious individuals could exploit to manipulate patient outcomes. Enhancing surveillance measures, such as improving camera coverage and audit trails, can act as a deterrent and provide critical evidence if misconduct occurs. Moreover, integrating regular psychological evaluations for healthcare personnel could serve as a proactive safeguard. Early identification of troubling behaviors or emotional distress among staff members might prevent potential tragedies before they happen. This holistic strategy, combining data analysis, procedural safeguards, and psychological assessment, aims to create a healthcare environment that is not only safe but also resilient against hidden threats. Within the hospital's still and silent nights, the empty corridors take on a haunting quality, echoing with the silence that conceals whispered betrayals. The nurse's actions have cast a long and chilling shadow over this space, serving as a stark reminder that beneath the polished veneer of care and professionalism can lurk cold calculation and quiet malice. The sterile environment, punctuated by the quiet hum of machines and the fleeting presence of caregivers, forms a paradoxical tableau, one where healing and harm coexist uneasily. In the aftermath, the community faces a painful contradiction. The trusted nurse they once believed in now shadowed by the possibility of being a hidden killer. This unsettling truth challenges core beliefs about trust, compassion, and the nature of evil. It forces a confrontation with the fragile line between kindness and cruelty, exposing uncomfortable realities about human vulnerability. The case urges us to rethink how we place faith in those entrusted with our care, and reveals the complex darkness that can dwell within human nature. This psychological insight serves as a stark warning not just for healthcare, but for all institutions where power can conceal harmful intentions. Recognizing how trauma, control, and identity intertwine is vital to preventing future tragedies. It reminds us that silence can be as telling as a confession, and the gaps between facts often hide the darkest truths. As this chapter closes, the hospital remains a symbol of contradiction, a place where life is nurtured and ended, where silence can mask both comfort and fear. The echoes of the nurse's dark past linger, urging us to listen closely to the quiet whispers. It is a chilling reminder that beneath care's surface may lie cold calculation and unresolved pain. In the end, fear is a mirror, and sometimes, what stares back is not a monster from our nightmares, but a human face we once trusted. The story of the nurse who walked quietly through hospital halls reminds us that evil can wear the guise of care, and silence can conceal the deepest betrayals. As you reflect on these hidden shadows, consider the hands that have cared for you. What truths might they hide beneath their calm exterior? If this story unsettled you, please like, share the video, and subscribe to Criminal Mindcast for more explorations into the dark complexities of the human mind and crime. Some crimes leave no screams, only questions, and some silences echo louder than any confession. Thank you for listening to Criminal Mindcast.
References 1. Hare, R.E.D., 1999. Without Conscience, The Disturbing World of the Psychopaths Among Us. Point 2. Millen, T., and Davis, R.D., 1996. Disorders of Personality, DSM-4 and Beyond. Point 3. Frankel, V.E., 1984. Man's Search for Meaning.